This is way worse than we thought. A crucial player on the Denver Broncos roster who was injured multiple times during the first half of the game last weekend against the Dallas Cowboys is now expected to miss significant time in the coming weeks for the Denver Broncos. And considering the fact that this is one of the most crucial aspects of this Denver Broncos team and of this Denver Broncos roster, the implications as to whether or not the team will be able to perform at the rate that it's been performing over the last few weeks are very notable. And we're going to break down everything surrounding this injury update, talk about all the details and what we should suspect looking forward, since this injury is 100% confirmed and it's likely we will not be seeing this player for the next few weeks. Welcome into Broncos Digest, everybody. As usual, my name is Mark Robinson. Happy to be here breaking down all things Denver Broncos football with you guys. I mean, I'm still riding high on an awesome win from this last weekend. Broncos dropped 44 points against the Dallas Cowboys, and it was a great one. Even though we are talking about an unfortunate injury today, a lot of really positive aspects to take away from this game and a lot of exciting stuff to look forward to in the future. All right, we're going to dive into this injury breakdown surrounding Pat Surtain, the reigning defensive player of the year. But before we do so, I want to remind you guys, make sure that you're subscribed to Broncos Digest here on YouTube. 92% of our viewers on a daily basis are watching our videos, tuning in, potentially even interacting with our videos, but are not subscribed to the channel. It takes 5 seconds, exit out of the video super quick, hit the subscribe button, join the family. We appreciate you guys for your support. So please join the channel, join the amazing Broncos family that we have here at Broncos Digest. You guys won't regret it. We appreciate it more than you know. And on that note, we're trying to break through to 600 subscribers, and we're trying to do it by the end of the week. So if you guys could help us with that goal, we're only 15 subscribers away. We've got until Sunday. Help us get to that 600 subscriber goal. We're trying to keep growing as much as we possibly can, and we need you guys to help us out in doing so. So hit that subscribe button, join the Broncos Digest family. We appreciate it. All right, let's break down this Patrick Surtain injury update, which is a lot worse than people originally thought it was going to be. It was a roller coaster of emotions, as I said in the beginning of the video, during the first half of the game, because what happened in the first few minutes of the game was Bo Nix threw an interception. Dallas got the ball in pretty solid field position. They drove all the way down to the red zone, and then a pass that was being covered by Patrick Surtain against George Pickens was broken up by Patrick Surtain, but he was on the ground with an apparent lower body injury. He looked to be in a lot of discomfort. Looked like he had tweaked something below the knee, maybe an ankle, maybe something like that, like a calf injury. And he went off the field, went into the medical tent, and everybody was kind of freaking out, especially because it was the beginning of the game, and we had luckily held Dallas only to a field goal at that point, but we didn't know if we were going to need our reigning defensive player of the year, the best quarterback in the league, in this game to make a notable impact on defense. But luckily, with that injury, he came out, was completely fine after, shook it off, was all good, was pretty much dialed in, and then played the remainder of the first half. But with just a few seconds left in the first half, Patrick Surtain went to make a tackle against, I believe it was George Pickens again, and he hurt his pec muscle somehow. Something that happened during the tackle tweaked his pec. He was in a lot of discomfort. He came off the field, and then during halftime and into the third quarter, he was evaluated and he was ruled out of the game because of this injury. So a report from Ian Rappaport, cornerback Pat Surtain II, the reigning DPOY, suffered a pec strain in the win over the Dallas Cowboys. Per himself and Tom Pelissero, he's considered week to week, and he could end up landing on the IR. So this is going to be something to heavily keep an eye on, because there is still a lot of unconfirmed news surrounding this injury, how long Patrick Surtain is going to be out. I believe he's getting a second opinion, which we'll dive into in a second here as well. But the fact that he has confirmed to have had some sort of a pec strain injury on that tackle at the end of the first half, we could potentially be seeing Patrick Surtain out nursing this injury for 4, 5, maybe even 6 weeks, which is very notable for this Broncos defense, which ranks among the best in the league. And a report here from Adam Schefter as well, the #1 source for NFL news per ESPN. Broncos cornerback Patrick Surtain expected to be a candidate to be placed on injured reserve due to the pectoral injury he suffered on Sunday, reported by himself as well as Schultz report. So Denver's next 4 games, which we're going to break down those at the end of the video as well. But Houston, Las Vegas, Kansas City, and Washington, you're potentially not going to have your number 1 corner, your reigning defensive player of the year, cornerback in Patrick Surtain in those games, which could put the defense on a completely different trend looking forward into the future. And then just another interesting report that I wanted to touch on, just to really dive into what we could potentially be seeing here, as I think Patrick Surtain is getting a second opinion on this injury, wants to really make sure that he understands what's going on with the injury, how much time he has to miss. I know that there is no surgery required as well as it stands right now. We'll see what the second opinion says. But as of right now, Patrick Surtain has a pec strain, multiple reports with timelines all over the place. A grade 1 pec strain is about a 1 to 4 week time off healing process. Grade 2 is 1 to 2 months, and grade 3 is 6+. And it sounds like he doesn't have as high as a grade 3 strain, but the possibility of a grade 2 is high, and the possibility of IR means we should just hope that he's ready for playoffs kind of near the latter half of the season, which, I mean, that also has implications surrounding the fact that this is potentially worse than we thought, considering we might not see Patrick Surtain play for over a month. And we know how much of an impact he makes on our defense, on our pass coverage, on our play in the backfield. It's very notable, and not having him in these games, it could serve as a potential red flag, a potential problem for the Broncos looking forward. Surtain suffered the injury during the win over Dallas, as we discussed. He left the game with the leg injury in the first half, but was able to return, then suffered the pectoral injury right before halftime. What I'm trying to emphasize here, because I know that sounds like a lot of repeat information, but Surtain strained his left arm while attempting to tackle George Pickens after the pass completion, got up from the play in clear discomfort while holding the left side of his chest. So the next man up on the depth chart, who we're going to potentially be seeing take Patrick Surtain's place over these next few weeks here, likely second-year cornerback Chris Abrams-Draine, who played in relief of Patrick Surtain for that second half against the Dallas Cowboys. Abrams-Draine, a 5th-round pick out of the University of Missouri in 2024, played well late in his rookie season, but he struggled a little bit off the bench yesterday. Allowed 6 receptions for 78 yards on 6 targets. Those numbers are obviously much worse than what we usually see from Patrick Surtain. And despite KAD's coverage stats, Denver's coach Sean Payton said that after the game he was pleased with how the entire Denver secondary stepped up after PS2 left the game with the pec injury. No comment or report from Vance Joseph, the defensive coordinator. I'm sure we'll be hearing from him during the week surrounding just the discussion with Pat Surtain's injury, and more notably, what he thinks is going to be kind of the picture for looking forward in terms of who replaces, what the secondary looks like, and all that stuff. So the Broncos' projected cornerback depth chart looking forward: at CB1, you've got Riley Moss, and then you've got Chris Abrams-Draine. In the slot, you've got Jaquan McMillan, which we've seen McMillan play. He's very capable of doing very well in the backfield. And then CB4, Jahdae Barron. We saw him get his first interception this last weekend. So it's still a pretty solid backfield. It's still pretty solid secondary for the Denver Broncos. I will say, one thing that does concern me is Riley Moss at the CB1 position. Riley Moss is a great cornerback. He has to cover a lot of really tough receivers, and he also ends up having to essentially take on the bulk of the work sometimes because nobody really decides to target Patrick Surtain. So I'm wondering what it's going to look like now that Riley Moss is at that CB1 position, Chris Abrams-Draine is at the CB2 position, and with all that in mind, what's it going to look like in terms of, will Riley Moss be getting more targets? Will Chris Abrams-Draine be getting more targets? Will Riley Moss get even more pass interference calls? Because that is obviously an issue that's discussed along Riley Moss and his play as well. So that's definitely worth noting and definitely worth considering too. All right, so looking ahead to the next 4 weeks of football for the Denver Broncos, with the fact that Patrick Surtain will probably not be in mind. We've got the Texans this coming weekend. That one shouldn't be too difficult without Surtain, but it'll be interesting to see how the backfield plays against a pretty solid Texans offense. But obviously the defense is where the Texans thrive so far this season, and hopefully our offense can do what we did against the Dallas Cowboys last week and take care of business. One little quick note that is somewhat related to all this. I was listening to Altitude Sports Radio this morning, Brett Kane, on his morning show at around 6:30 a.m. He was talking about how at this time last year, the Broncos picked up their offense, and from this point on for the remainder of the season last year, they averaged 28 points a game, which is pretty wild. This last weekend, they scored 44 points. It's almost like maybe this offense just takes a little bit of time to click. And now that it's found its groove over the next few weeks here, we may be seeing an offensive masterclass from the Broncos. We'll see. But obviously, we're talking defense and Patrick Surtain right now. Defense against the Raiders should not be a problem. I think Patrick Surtain could sit during that game, even if he was healthy, and we'd still comfortably handle the Raiders. The real kicker here is going to be the Chiefs. They have picked up their game significantly. They are back in as a legitimate contender in the AFC without Patrick Surtain. It's going to be an interesting game defensively. The Broncos are really going to need to carry their weight offensively against the Chiefs. I'm really looking forward to that game. It's going to be a big one for Denver. And then after that, the Washington Commanders. The Commanders are kind of a frisky, questionable team right now. I don't know when Jaden Daniels is going to be back in. And I know that they've gotten some good wins this year, but they've also been struggling as of late. They actually just lost to the Chiefs last night on Monday Night Football. So all this in mind with the Patrick Surtain injury on the table, this is what the next 4 weeks look like. And we have to wonder how well the defense will be able to keep up with some of these matchups without our number one cornerback out on the field. And so with that in mind, I'm curious how you guys are feeling about this injury. I want you guys to drop your answers in the comments. I'm going to play an ad right after this little blurb right here. So you have an opportunity to pop into the comments. Let me know how you're feeling. Will missing PS2 significantly hurt our defense? Put a Y in the comments for yes. Put an N in the comments for no. Like I said, I'm literally going to have an advertisement play right now at the end of this question right here. So while the ad's playing, pop into the comments. Let me know how you're thinking. Without PS2 out in the backfield, with everybody having to shift up a position, will missing PS2 significantly hurt our defense? Go put it in the comments right now. Y for yes, N for no. All right, that's going to do it for us today on Broncos Digest. Once again, enjoy this win over the Cowboys this last week. Broncos are buzzing right now. They're 6-2. They're on a 5-game winning streak. They've got 2 pretty solid matchups coming up in the next few weeks so that I think they'll be able to handle. So as usual, exciting stuff for the Denver Broncos as we look ahead to the next few weeks. We'll be keeping you updated on all things injury reports, all things trade rumors, any trades that go down. We will have you covered here on Broncos Digest. So as usual, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're watching our videos, liking and leaving a comment, letting us know how you feel about what we're talking about. Make it the best day that you possibly can. And until next time, have a great rest of your day, everybody.